Let's start with the vaccine, of course. Not the deal, the letter of intent. Is it the most promising one? And could we be talking early next year as a possibility for the first ones to roll out in Australia?
Look, it is probably one of the most promising at this stage. It's certainly one of the ones which is the furthest down the line in terms of the studies to show whether it's actually beneficial. But look, it's not a done deal, firstly, from the point of view of whether it will actually work and whether it will be totally safe at this stage. Until we see those studies, we can't be sure. In terms of getting it out, say if all things being equal and it does turn out to be safe and effective, then we're probably still looking at early next year, be able to gear up and get the recipe to the manufacturers to start manufacturing it, to manufacture it to large enough quantities to be a benefit. So we are still talking next year. But look, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge at this moment, Tom, and we've still got to look out for other potential vaccines which may turn out to be the one that actually works.
The other possibility, I guess, is how effective they are. So they have to be not perfectly safe, but as safe as possible to be able to get approved. And then from that point, it's about efficacy. So you could have a vaccine that's totally fine, after effects or so on, side effects are found to be fine, but it might be, roughly 50% effective. So what happens in society if that happens? We presumably could open things up more, take more risks with the economy, but still have things, as we just saw on the screen there, touching elbows, not shaking hands, social distancing and so on. So to be a measure of freedom we'd get.
It would help, but you wouldn't get to that sort of critical number that they kind of talk about, 70 to 80% of people having herd immunity, where basically there's enough people in the community where it can't spread. It would still be beneficial, though, but obviously we would still have to institute other measures. I think the other critical question remains whether you get prolonged effect. And really, we're way too early to be able to tell whether you get prolonged effect. So maybe it might be 50% effective for a period of time, but you've seen some of the studies and concerns about the fact that antibody levels drop. We don't know whether that means, in fact, that if somebody has COVID-19, the antibody levels drop and immunity drops, and we don't know whether this will be the same for the vaccine. So these are questions that have to be answered. So again, a lot of water to go under the bridge. And I think yesterday there was a lot of focus on one vaccine. I think we're a long way from being clear as to whether this will be the one, and if it is the one, whether it will be a long-term solution and how much it will help.
Right, and I guess the other thing, you mentioned other vaccines, to sit on the other side of the ledger of this being quite positive. Let's say this one comes into production and has a certain efficacy, maybe 50%, and might last 6 months. That's the beginning, right? And in the meantime, people are working on other vaccines. Multiple ones can be used, and that'll be the positive side. Once you get one through the community, you're building up more and more tolerance, and that could be the beginning of, never having to take a step back, if you like.
It would be helpful, and look, we are all praying, frankly, that it's got to work, and there will be some benefit, because obviously it's the best solution and the best end game for us if we can find something, and ideally we have something that will firstly be safe, that will work in the long term for everybody, and basically have no side effects, and that we can get to enough people so we can build up that herd immunity, and then we can get on with our lives. That would be the ideal. But again, a fair bit of water going under the bridge before we can call that on, and particularly for the one vaccine which was focused on yesterday.
And just finally, aged care, all this talk about preparation. What's your understanding? I know you work in aged care homes, about what level of preparation there was. I suppose the key element, yes, New South Wales, it might have taken people a bit by surprise, the speed of that, but the preparation between that and Victoria.
It isn't ready yet. I mean, I don't buy the fact that, but people say there are plans. There are plans out there, but they're all written up on some website. At the moment, look, my world is that I know that aged care isn't funded very well. It's caught between federal and state and the health departments in that sort of no man's land in terms of where it sits. And what's actually happening is they're getting instructions from lots and lots of authorities telling them what to do, with threats about what they have to do and advice. And look, I had this email, and this was at the Royal Commission, where one nursing home sort of director is getting advice and threats and what they have to do from 16 different sources, like from Department of Health federally, state, Prime Minister's office. Look, it's all very good to have these plans and telling them what to do, but what we need is actually on-the-ground support for these facilities and the resources. because at the moment it's poorly coordinated. So the AMA has said we need a proper risk assessment on the ground with people that know what they're doing and for advice and support to make sure they've, for example, got the PPE. Because at the moment, all they're doing is they're ticking boxes from the stuff they've been told. Like they get told, you have to make sure that you take a name of everybody that comes into the facility. That's the new rule for today. But what is actually happening is all they're doing then is actually putting a book out there with a pen with a bit of string so everybody can infect each other as they're writing their visitor's name on there. I mean, that's the sort of response. It's not a really coherent response. We need something much more coordinated for aged care to really to protect them.